What is happening, friends of CCP Podcasting? Welcome to the first Beyond the Bell of 2026. I am Chris Page. I hope everyone is having a great weekend. Also having a fantastic start to the new year. We're 3 days deep, and I've already gotten kicked off of YouTube for a week, guys. So we're going to be live today on Twitch. We're going to be live today on X. Papa Page made a boo-boo, and we get out of YouTube jail in about 6 days. So we'll be back live on YouTube right about then. I hope everyone is, again, enjoying their Saturday. Shout out Goth. I see you already popping in over on Twitch. Hope you're doing well. Before we get too deep into the party, got some announcements to make. Guys, the 31st is right around the corner of January. It is Chapter 2. It is next level. We have got 9 big matches coming your way, featuring a lot of debuts in Florida from some of our friends out in Southern California at Primal Pro Wrestling, as well as some of our friends from Atlanta, Georgia, as well as some of our friends from Jersey are coming down, from the Philly area, actually, to be specific, coming down this way to make some Florida debuts and mix it up with some of the best on the Florida scene. You can get your tickets at ccppodcasting.com. Devious Cast, GMJ, slated to hook it up in our main event. Matthew Ennis and G4 out of Southern California Primal Pro are hooking it up. The Pump Line taking on Reese Maddox and Kid Kuda, as well as, well, I'm not going to make that announcement just yet. I thought about it, and I was like, let me just pull that one back. We'll do that one here in a little bit. Today, let's dive in. Let's get started as to why we're here. Our first guest of the new year is coming to us. Our paths crossed because I always say that professional wrestling can bring people together, and this was kind of one of those stories of how that happened. I woke up randomly on a morning, can't even remember the day, to a DM, and I was like, is this real? And it was, but it's the platform that got us in touch and got us an interview with Barry Darsow late last year as we were talking about his book. My man, his name is Fox, and he's coming to us from Grapple Arcade. Welcome to Beyond the Bell Live, and I'm pleased to have you as the first guest of 2026. How are you, sir?
Oh, mate, I'm absolutely honoured. Thank you very much for giving me a bit of airwaves to chat about the things that I'm up to and what we do. I'm doing good, thanks. 2026, it's a bit bizarre, as British Bulldog once, that we're here. 2026, wow.
I know, you blink and 2027 is going to be here, and that's just it's just a crazy thing to think about the whole way around. Goth over on Twitch saying welcome to CCP Podcasting. Goth's one of our co-hosts from the Netherlands, so he's actually out over in Europe. This is a beautiful thing, kind of about our platform, and when you kind of crossed our paths, and I found out you were over in the UK. Like, I've got a couple of guys that are centered in Europe, some are in the UK as well, and I think it's kind of cool with the Brit rest scene, because over the last 2 years, I've really been able to dive in on the indie scene specifically. But I mean, I know we have a lot to talk about and a lot of things that we want to just kind of go over. But for you, I'm going to start it off the same way I do with anyone who comes in for Beyond the Bell, talent-wise, is I always like to know, when does your fandom start with professional wrestling? What does that look like for you?
1989.
80s child too.
Yeah, 1989. That's when it started. I'm trying to think of the exact moment, but it was through a friend, and I think it was some kind of merchandise paraphernalia. I remember it being 89 because 1990, I managed. Well, my older brother was given an American copy of the 90 Royal Rumble.
Okay.
That was my first exposure to it, and blown away by whatever it was that I was watching that I didn't understand on the TV. It was incredible. And at that time in the UK, wrestling was very difficult to get a hold of. It wasn't something that, there wasn't a multitude of channels that we had. We literally had, at the time, 4 channels on terrestrial TV. And then if you were lucky enough, you could tap into a satellite dish, the predecessor to what has become Sky, that we all know in the UK. WWE's had a relationship with for 30 years plus. But back then, it wasn't really something you could get a hold of very easily unless you knew somebody who worked down the pub who could get a sneaky a Sky Dish and set it up for you, and you paid a weird subscription fee because they weren't really obtainable, and most of the channels were encrypted, so you couldn't watch anything. But man, the first ever bit of TV that I saw was the build up to Hogan versus Earthquake. It was the very first scene that I saw on TV. Was the whole, the incredible slow motion, I am a real man, and Earthquake crushes him and jumps it. And I've been a lifelong John Tenta fan, and I was a big Hogan fan as a kid, but John Tenta in later years, huge fan ever since. So yeah, that was my first kind of the start of the fandom, my first peek into wrestling, I suppose you could say.
Well, I'm curious now because we talked a little bit before we came on the air, and you're kind of really big into sumo wrestling. Was that kind of what drew you to a little into John Tenta? Because I know that back before he got into professional wrestling, he was doing sumo wrestling.
John was an absolutely unbelievable sumo wrestler. Man, I had the pleasure of chatting with John back in early 2000s when used to be an incredible website called WrestleCrap. It was up and running. That website is one of the main reasons I stayed being a fan in the 2000s, even though teenage years hit. But John was frequently on there, and he was happy to chat in a sort of chat room with everybody. It wasn't like today where there's a lot of technology, but you have to kind of organise access to interview people, much like you're doing now. John and the owners of WrestleCrap were very good friends, and John used to just jump on there and have lots of discussions with all the fans and people who were on the site at the time. It was a wonderful time. But back then, John informed me that he used to be a sumo, and I didn't know that at the time because the internet was pretty new in my house. I didn't get it until the very late 90s. So yeah, that kind of passed me by any information that was out there about John being a sumo, other than in 1994, was it, when he had that sumo match versus Yokozuna?
Yep.
Other than that, I didn't really understand what was happening at the time. Obviously, in hindsight, it makes sense, but at the time, I didn't really get it. I thought it was just still part of the gimmick. They were just saying that Earthquake used to be a sumo, or what? Anyway, yeah, John was an absolutely unbelievable sumo wrestler. He was undefeated. As a matter of fact, and he started off as all sumos do on the bottom division, and depending on how you do the points that you accumulate, you move up the ranks, you move up the divisions, so to speak. And John got to the point of he was about to be shown on TV, and it's probably the best way to see it. He was about to enter, I think it was a Jurio division, which is, he was heading towards it anyway. He was getting to that point. People thought it was going to be the next big thing, which he easily could have been. There was some issues about the fact that he had tattoos, and Japan don't like tattoos, especially when it's something like sumo wrestling, because of the links to the Yakuza and whatnot. And I believe John said he wasn't going to get it removed. Therefore, he left sumo and went to New Japan before he went back to Canada and then WF. So, sorry, long-winded way of saying yes.
No, it's fine. When you said John Tent or you said Earthquake, immediately the first thing I thought about was, obviously we talked about sumo wrestling before we came on the air, and I went to Yokozuna and John Tenta in the sumo match because it was different at the time in the early mid to early 90s. And for me, that was kind of a little bit where I was started to get drawn into more deeper into professional wrestling. Was around that time, and that was very vivid to me as a kid. I remember that, and I was just like, aha, see, we connect on a John Tenta moment, and that is the first time that anyone has brought up John Tenta in that sense, and that I was able to be like, this is a moment that we can talk about, because it takes me back. It's one of those things, like, you don't forget it, and I don't know why, and I can't explain it, but I don't like it's that moment, and it's also him squashing Damien, Jake the Snake.
Quick burgers, yeah. That was fantastic. That whole segment. John was fantastic. The thing is, with sumo and wrestling has got a bit more of a crossover than people think, because Haku and Barbarian were also sumo wrestlers before they started wrestling as teenagers.
I did not know
They went to
that.
Japan and lived in Japan and trained as sumos. In fact, they have stable houses in sumo. So when you're learning the ropes, you all live together in a stable, much like within wrestling. For you're a stable, you live together in a stable house, and the stable master who's in charge is usually the trainer, and make sure everybody obeys the rules and the traditions. And where that house was essentially full of Fijians. It was like quite a lot of Fijians going over there and trying sumo, and because that crop of guys were just so solid and masculine, and even as skinny teenagers, they were just incredibly tough. They had their own house. From what I understand, the stable master who was looking after them, he passed away. Somebody else took over. Didn't like Fijians. Sacked them all, essentially, sent them back home. And then the king of Fiji was incredibly angry about what he perceived racism. And then heads of the sumo committee had to go over to Fiji and apologise to the king of Fiji for kicking out Haku and Barbarian. So it's just wild, man. There's some wild stuff.
The ties do run deep. I didn't know any of that.
Mad, isn't it?
I'm again. This is about education. It's about learning, and I just learned something new, and I am here for it, man. At what
I promise I
point?
won't hijack all your questions and go off on a
No,
deep-rooted rants.
it is
Be
it's
here for weeks.
it's perfectly fine. I'm here for the conversation, man. That's where I'm
Oh, man.
at. Huge shout out to Dog Mama over Twitch. I see you, Shannon, on Twitch. You guys have any questions? Feel free to drop them in, and I'll get them worked in as we continue on here. Well, let me ask you this. Let's talk a little bit about, again, I said at the top of the show, you were very instrumental on obviously getting a chance to talk to Barry Darsow, and that's kind of where our story between you and I began. So I kind of want to know, like, how did you come across us, and where do we hit your radar? Because that was a big opportunity, and I thanked you several times, and I'll thank you on the air too. That was a big deal for me because that was arguably one of the biggest interviews that we've been able to conduct, or conversations rather. So I'm kind of curious how do we hit your radar?
Well, so part of one of my jobs is that I work for a UK wrestling magazine called Inside the Ropes magazine, and they also do a lot of tours with wrestlers who come over to the UK. They get them to a venue on stage, question and answer style format, and part of the magazine is a publishing company as well. So I work for the publishing company as well as doing stuff with Inside the Ropes, if that makes sense. So Barry, part of his book deal was we were publishing it essentially, and one of the things that we wanted to do was to reach out to a number of different podcasts, find different podcasts, people that we already had relationships with, whether like Conrad and Eric Bischoff, and got Barry on their show. Dave Meltzer's show, numerous different sort of what you'd class as sort of, I suppose, mainstream podcasts, as you might want to class it as. But we've done quite a lot of work with those guys in the past, given the nature of what we do as a business with the magazine and the events. But also, we wanted to kind of reach out to more than that. And one of the things I suggested that we did was reach out to more up and coming podcasts. And that then in turn created a lot of work for me, looking out, trying to filter, if you like, and finding out who's doing what and who's interviewing who, and who's willing to kind of not just look at. There's a lot of podcasts out there that have got big numbers, big viewerships. They've got quite a wide reach, but they just cover week to week WWE as it happens in 2025, 2026. And I wanted to reach out to podcasts who looked like they were willing to kind of, given the history of the episodes that they'd put out there, they were interviewing stars of yesteryear, or at least having discussions about yesteryear.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my criteria. And it was literally, essentially, just a case of finding 2 or 3 different podcasts, but weeks and weeks of research to find out who's doing what and how they're doing it. And you came about literally by me doing that on Instagram and different platforms, finding out who's doing what. Research is quite a big part of my job. So that was essentially how it started. So to completely cards on the table. I was unaware about you guys, much like you were of me, before I started reaching out about Barry Darsow. And you guys were, thankfully, you guys decided to say, yeah, we'll definitely do that. And that really helped me a lot, because in some cases you don't hear back from some people, believe it or not, or they do get back to you, but about 5 weeks later, after the opportunity's been and gone. And there's a handful of people that were very keen, including yourselves, to take me up on having a chat with Barry. And then for me, what that tells me is that you guys mean it. You're up for it, and you put out not just a good content, but the way you do things is the way that I do things. Like, yes, there's an opportunity. Let's jump on it and let's see what we can do with it. Which in turn naturally means that if there's any opportunities in the future, I'll come knocking again.
I couldn't be more grateful for that. Like I said, when I got that DM from you initially, I was like, "Is this real?" Like, first of all, is this real? Like, I called my business partner. So like, the thing with us is like our channels just kind of evolved really over 2026 is when I started taking it seriously, because I was like, all right, there's we can do something here. I called one of my business partners and I was like, "You're not gonna believe this." Like, I'm reading in the DM and I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna answer it, but I don't know if this is legit, because you don't ever know. It's the fucking internet, bro.
Of course,
Uh,
mate. Of
but of
course.
course, it obviously it worked out and we were able to make that happen. And I was like, dude, yes, absolutely. Will 100% do whatever we need to do to make something like that happen, because that's a pretty big deal for not only for our channel, but it opens the door to create relationships and build relationships and having you on the show. Like, I wanted to sit down and chat and just get the opportunity to put what you're doing out there in front of our audience, and
I just
anyone
appreciate it.
else who
Really appreciate it.
who stumbles in over in chat. Goth on Twitch said, "Thank you for that, sir. We got to speak to a legend." No Game said that he
Such a
looked. See,
such a cool guy as Barry, isn't he? Such a nice dude. Like, he's
yeah,
just
was
really
really
pleasant and
just welcoming the whole way
yeah,
around.
yeah.
And like, just with the time that we had, and I kept having to watch the clock. I'm not accustomed to doing that during conversations. Like, we just
Yeah.
in my head and metrically, like, I know where our audience starts tuning out, so like I'll gaze down every now and then. But with him, I was like, just want to make sure that we don't fuck it up, and then get the information
Peeling the
out there.
curtain,
Huh?
peeling the curtain back a little bit for your listeners as well. It's like, so the criteria that I had to put on the likes of Chris was that, right, guys, there's 2 days to choose from, but you've got a half an hour slot, and it's probably going to be about 2:30 or something like that your time. That's it. Can you do it? And it's not like, it's because that it's a very difficult situation to kind of not only convince somebody that this is legit, but it's also, by the way, can you be available at this very precise time in the very soon, not too distant future.
Yeah.
And you did, and that speaks volumes about your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I'll move mountains, man. If we got to do what we got to do, we do it. But you talked about being attached to Inside the Ropes. Now that seems to be a really good pivot point. Let's work backwards a little bit and kind of put together how you've gotten to where you've gotten to right now, and what that looks like for you. So I know professional wrestling is a big tie into it. And I'm just kind of interested to go on this journey for the next 40-ish 50-ish minutes, and let's see where we can
Cool.
go with it.
All right, man. Well, lifelong wrestling fan, shock horror, had dipped in and out during teenage years for the obvious reasons that we all do, distractions and other more important things turning up on our radar. So I started trying to do something in the business end of wrestling. I'd say in the teens of the 2000s, so probably about 2015 or so. I set up an events company called Grapple Arcade, which was essentially a video game and arcade night of wrestling games only. and that would be at different bars around the city, different events, different exhibitions, after shows for wrestling companies, things like that. And I'd cart around 20 or so different consoles, starting as early as the SNES or the Famicom and the Genesis, Mega Drive, all the way up to, I think it was the N64, PS2 kind of era. So just lots and lots of consoles and TVs and games, an official WrestleFest arcade machine, and used to run tournaments. And it was just a really fun sort of party night out, few drinks, bit of food, play a shit ton of wrestling games wherever we possibly can, and everybody was enjoying it. So that's kind of how I started to move in some of the circles with some of the talent and promoters, because they would ask me to come and do after show parties and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the main kind of starting point, really, and that's what Grapple Arcade originated as. And then I was about to purchase a venue, about to take over the lease for a venue that we'd been running every 2 months. We'd been running there. They wanted to do something different with the venue and asked if I'd be interested in taking over. I was about to put pen to paper. We were a week away, and then COVID happened. Lockdown happened. No events, no live events, obviously. Everybody is shut away, and that didn't go through, thankfully. Or else I would have been very screwed in a business point of view for just taking over a bar and venue a week before COVID. So, gutted that it didn't actually happen, that I didn't have our own Grapple Arcade bar and whatnot. I grew up in the brewery trade as well because of my father. So I was kind of in the know about how to run a pub, but turning it into a wrestling events pub, which just, would have been quite fun and unique and different at the time. And now, pretty much every bar in my city of Newcastle has got video game machines in it of some description, which is cool to see. But at the time, it wasn't really happening. So anyway, yeah, that didn't happen, thankfully. I didn't lose any money, thankfully. Then podcasting started. Everybody got into podcasting during lockdown and COVID, and that was really fun, and managed to work with and chat with quite a lot of wrestling legends over the years, and that was where my fandom, in terms of the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, got lots of different guys, different wrestlers involved, chat to them, had a wonderful time podcasting. And then the bubble burst a bit when COVID disappeared and lockdown stopped being a lockdown and everybody got back outside again. And then it was just, let me try and think about who I started working for. A couple of different wrestling action figure companies as a designer. And that was after COVID started. That was after COVID had ended. So we're talking 2022-ish, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, had access to chat with a lot of different legends of wrestling because we were making official action figures of them. And it just kind of went from there. I started making adverts for that company and engaging with Inside the Ropes magazine, getting adverts in the magazine, got on really well with the chief editor. And then he invited me to join the team. And that's kind of how it worked. It's just, it's a sort of pathway of different avenues that occur because of what the thing that you're doing at that moment in time. And much like we were discussing earlier, just taking opportunities to come and say, yeah, let's give it a go. Yeah, I'll take a day off work to interview so-and-so. Yeah, I'll do this. You just don't know what door's going to open on the back of that. You can never predict it. 90% of the time, nothing will occur, but 10% of the time, there's doors.
I'm
the right one.
I'm that guy that can't deal with what if. I'm that guy.
Yeah, man.
Like, I'm that dude. Yeah. And like I resonate very much so with the path and what you're saying, because you don't know. I mean, this platform's pretty positive of that. I didn't know that where we would get to, how quick we would get here, and just the overall growth just by doing independent wrestling. And for me, it was, we were initially doing old watch-alongs to old territory stuff, like the 80s, 70s, and 80s. And, you know, stuff that we could find on YouTube that we knew it would pass on YouTube. But then I just got to thinking, I was like, man, like I love this. Don't get me wrong, because I'm a diehard old, I'm an old school old head at heart. But I just was like, we need to do we could do something else. We could do independent stuff. We could really dive into the independent scene and figure out what works and what doesn't. And the first year was trial and fucking error every step of the way. Every step of the way. Year two, I was like, I told my team, and I call them my team because like I did not know that I would be putting together like 7 or 8 different people from all over the world who share the same passion, right? I told my team like last year, 2025, that we were gonna expand with advertisement. This is what we're gonna do. The best way that I know how to advertise is to sponsor wrestlers. They're going to shows. You know, we'll do that. We did. It started working. Then it just snowballed. It's like that. The ball was on top of the hill, and it just started. Then it started picking up more momentum and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's just like you have to bet on yourself. And
you do.
Go ahead.
No, absolutely.
Not predicted. As we give it a second for people to kind of get back in and get back into the mix. You know, what I found interesting about what we were talking about before I got booted off the fucking air, is just the aspect of betting on yourself and not knowing what's going to be behind that door. And in your case, like this is turning into something that is really, you know, something special, to be perfectly fair, because you're living the dream to a degree by doing this kind of work, which is obviously what your passion is.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I think you hit stumbling blocks along the way, and I was really bad when I was a bit younger. If I'd hit a wall because of burnout or just crash out or whatever it might be, I wasn't particularly very good at getting straight back on the horse and just shaking it off. You know, that kind of, I think it comes with time more than anything else, and you get all the time or the way that you want it to happen. So there was a few different companies. I won't slander, but there's a couple of companies that took massive advantage that I've worked with in the past. That resulted in me not getting paid, resulted in numerous different things happening that leaves a bitter taste in your mouth and makes you question whether or not you want to kind of carry on in this arena.
Yep.
But well, these things happen, and I'm glad that I was able to shake that off, even taking a bit of a break from it, which is definitely worth doing, so you don't get crash out and burn out all the time. But took a bit of a break and then came back in a different angle, so ended up working for some action figure companies designing toys, as I mentioned. I started doing. There was a company over here in the UK who work very closely, and I think they're part of Progress Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And the company in question was Hooked On Events, and they had the license, like an official license from WWE, to show their pay-per-views at live venues around the country in the UK. So like pay-per-view parties, essentially.
Okay.
And in mind, pay-per-views are usually broadcasted in the UK at about 1 a.m. live because of the time difference. So naturally it was in a pub or a bar of some sorts or a casino bar. And I used to run one of those events. So I would run an event where 200 people or so might come to this essentially private gathering, ticketed gathering, to watch WrestleMania on a 40-foot cinema screen with a bar and loads of wrestling games to play on and wrestling quiz and people in cosplay and whatever else. Occasionally special guests from the independent scene in the UK as well. And it was really good fun. It was really cool. And that was another element of the journey. So it's again, as you say, whatever avenue there, sometimes don't be scared to at least inquire about it and give it a go. And if it doesn't work, cool. You've lost nothing as such, But if it does work and it works out and it opens up pathways and doorways, then just jump through it and go for it and see how it pans out. It's just the best advice I can give in life. People credit that to luck. I think luck has got an element to do with it. I don't personally believe in fate or anything like that. I think luck's a bigger part in it. I think you make your own luck for the most part.
I think you just got to believe in yourself and what you're doing,
Yeah,
and
100%.
like that's the thing that boils down on my side of the coin because like I don't. I guess that's like I get people who do ask me, like some podcasters and other folks that are like, hey, what did you think about when you're putting this together or putting that together? And at the end of the day, I didn't think about anything. I just thought about I want to watch wrestling. That's
Yeah,
that's all
yeah,
that's all
too
I'm
right.
doing. So at the end of the day, this is it. This is all I'm doing. I'm just watching it and I'm just talking about it.
Yep,
I used to be a wrestler. Like that's why I watch it and that's
yep.
why I talk about it. Like it's been 20 fucking years. But that it was a thing. It's what I used to like to do, and I don't have intentions
Anybody,
at the end of the day.
anybody who works in wrestling, whether it's in the ring or whether it's writing for a magazine or whether it's editing videos, or it's because they're a fan, and I think
Yes.
that's what it comes down to. The Grapple Arcade, that event team night event, whatever, didn't start as an event. It started off as a gathering of friends in my garage playing tournaments and wrestling games. And then more and more friends came, and then more and more friends turned up to the point where 60 or 70 friends wanted to come and stand in my garage and play wrestling games, which there was absolutely no space for 60 people. Then I said, well, let me contact a local bar and see if they're interested in me going along there, and I'll bring whoever of you guys along. So that's customers for the bar. So then we've got a bigger space to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's how it started, and then it goes from there. It all starts with fandom, no matter what.
One of our co-hosts has a Twitch channel of his own, No Game Unturned, and he is a gamer, and he is
Cool.
obviously the game is No Game Unturned. He's playing a lot of the games that are out there, so I kind of have
Impressive.
to know from my perspective, and I'm not even going to try and put myself in his. I got to know what one of these events looks like when you're putting together one of these wrestling after parties. What would a typical after party look like as far as the gaming side of the equation? Like what would you have going, and like did you do like a theme as an example? Like if you were doing an after
Okay.
party for a company, a Fed who just did a show or whatever, hey, we want you to come and do this. Did you what does planning one of these events look like to you back then?
I wish I could pretend it sounded as good as that on paper and design, but some of the best ones by far, the after parties specifically, we're probably working with North Wrestling, who I know that you guys have got a bit of a working relationship with.
I love North.
Um, they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible. They run their shows at a brewery in
Mm-hmm.
Newcastle where I live called Anarchy, and it's about a 15-20 minute walk for me, which is wonderful. Prior to them moving to Anarchy, they used to run at a venue called the Riverside, near our quayside in town, next to our main river that runs through the city.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big venue. And opposite that venue was a bar that they used to run their after parties at. So the venue, the wrestling venue, would close at say 10. Everybody would be kicked out of the events venue, cross over the road, literally over the road, stones throw away, and you're at what was called Popolo's, which was a cool ground floor long bar venue. So we used to set up numerous different machines in there, and as I said before, anything mainly because of the age range. That's what I always try to think about: who's turning up to these events. And you'd essentially have 30-year-olds and early 20s. It was that kind of demographic,
Mm-hmm.
much as you'd expect, because it's an 18 plus event. And North, generally speaking, North events are 18 plus. I know they do family friendly shows now, but as well. But that one was one of the original 18 plus events, and you'd get a mixture of the likes of Andrew, who runs North, and his crew. You'd get a handful of the wrestlers would turn up, and you'd get probably a good sort of 40 or 50, if not more, of the fans who attended the event would turn up as well. So we'd essentially just take over the entire bar, and there would be maybe sort of 7 or 8 or 9 different consoles and games set up. You'd have different personalities walking. We used to do random things, such as I remember doing some filming with Tom Campbell, who's one of the he's the ring announcer of North.
Yes, sir.
One of the cultaholic, and he's well known through the land for his wrestling antics. And we decided to open up some 1992 wrestling sticker packets that were still sealed, and go through them and just mark out essentially, but all on camera. So got a Beverly Brothers shiny, it was really, really cool and really fun and wholesome, and it was just a good laugh and people having a few drinks and relaxing. It was just a cool way to sort of end the night after a action-packed fun event. But the cool thing being for me was knowing that I was facilitating something fun where fans and wrestlers were interacting and playing on video games together and just having fun. It wasn't the barrier was down, it wasn't there and we're over here kind of situation. It was let's just all get together and have a bit of fun.
I mean, just call me the fan in me at all cost. I mean, I'd have a blast at one of those. I would just go from console to console. What do we got? What's next? What's next? What do we got next? And just go and no matter who I bump into, hey, let's make it happen. It just sounds like a good time, and it just sounds like it was a good time, and that's exactly how you fucking. You get people at their core at that point, right? Like, there is no bullshit. There is no nothing. It is just enjoying company and enjoying fucking wrestling.
That's good. And what I learned doing that as well is that, hang on a second, okay, a business mind suddenly switches on for the first time in my life. Like, hang on. So this core group of people are all wrestling fans. They're all at this event doing this thing that I've put on. I'm also doing this other thing over here, which is completely unlinked to all of this, which is in wrestling. Why don't I tell them all about it? And then they might be interested in that thing as well. And it sounds so silly just saying it when broken down like that. But then you start thinking, well, okay, none of this was ever meant to be a business concept at first. It just turned into one, and we just ran with it. And right, well, I'll put some flyers out there and say, well, if you like playing wrestling games here after this, we're also doing a pay-per-view party for Hooked on Events at the casino, watching WrestleMania live, and we'll have all of these tournaments on, and you can win medals, and there'll be a belt to hold as the new champion. And that's one thing that we did at our live events as well. When we'd let anybody play free play, whoever they wanted to play on whichever games, but we'd also run a tournament as well. And it might have been on No Mercy on the 64, putting that out there as an example. Yeah,
love that game.
So we do a No Mercy tournament, and at the end of that tournament, a champion is crowned. And there's a I don't even know if I can find the Grapple Arcade belt quickly. I'm trying to see. I think it's in a different room, unfortunately. That's a shame. But a proper gold Arcade Championship belt. Winner gets to hold that and strut around with it at the event on the night. Do they have to give it back at the end of the night? But then they're the champion at the next event. So then they go into that next event as the champion, and whoever wins that tournament becomes the new champion, or they retain. So it's just having fun in different ways with it. We one of the bars that we ran at, they had a really nice food, like burger and fries and hot dogs and whatever else kind of menu. We took over the menu and changed them all to wrestling puns. It's just things like that. You just have fun with it and just fully embrace it. I'll try and send you a couple of pics of some of the ones that we did if I can remember to do that. Just so you've got them. But they were great fun. And that led on to doing conventions as well. Gaming conventions or wrestling conventions. We ran the first Europe's biggest wrestling convention, which is For the Love of Wrestling, which happens to be held in the UK in Manchester every year. I set up about 10 or 15 machines for the first one of those, which was great fun. And, having the likes of Virgil coming over and sitting down and playing on SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. Just little things like that, you know. And then randomly, because of that, having an impromptu 15-minute interview with Sid. And Sid just wanted to talk about sausages. So we did. We did an interview with Sid about sausages for 15 minutes while Virgil's playing SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. You can't really expect or write this kind of stuff to happen. But because you just embrace it and you go with it and you try and look at angles and avenues to see what else could potentially happen.
It's wild, isn't it? I mean, it's wrestling. That's professional fucking wrestling at its core, man. And it's
carnival. It's an absolute carnival, and it's so much fun.
It could be so fun. It can be so stupid. It can be just there's so many different things it can be, but it's all fucking professional wrestling, and it's kind of just like I don't know, man. It's my passion. This is what I want to do. I want to continue to build this channel, continue to build this platform, continue our live events. Like we're starting out in 3 cities in the US this year and expanding. We have a lot of friends internationally, try and make some things happen and do some different things, because it's without professional wrestling, we don't have the platform. And it's just kind of like, how do you give back? How do you do it?
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. It's the ethos that I've taken into working for Inside the Ropes. It's just, this is fun. Yes, it's a job, but it's fun. It's as simple as that. And whether we've got live events coming up soon, I might as well get quick, cheap plugs in now. We've got, I think, sent you some graphics.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going next. Is what do we have coming up? What are some of the things that the project wise for 2026? Because your 2025 it wound down, and I want to know what can you talk about? I don't want to know things that you can't.
Right. Let's have a think about this. It's all Fast and Furious. Actually, 2026 is going to be massive. We've got a number of different. So for people who don't know what Inside the Ropes magazine is, I've shown Chris a graphic there, and essentially we took over. There was a predecessor, if you like, a well-known magazine called Power Slam, which originated in 1993, I believe it came out, and it was one of the greatest magazines of all time. Unfortunately, that journey ended just due to the way things go with magazines in the digital era. But a group of very brave people decided to try and carry on its legacy in a new form, being Inside the Ropes. So some of that old team plus new members got together with the likes of the chief editor Dante Richardson and Kenny McIntosh and Finn Martin, who was part of the Power Slam team, and so many other numerous amazing people got together and decided to carry on the legacy in magazine form, which has again opened the door to so many different things happening. So the magazine and the publishing team that work behind the magazine also bring out books, such as the Barry Darsow Demolition book, hence the link with what Barry Darsow and his book is with our company. We did Mark Mero's autobiography. We brought that one out a few months earlier on in the year. We've got Finn Martin has just created a great compendium of the first year of Superstars of Wrestling, which was another big, huge magazine over here at the time. So not only are we bringing out a monthly magazine in both physical and digital format, we're also going back to the early 90s. And then every magazine that came out that year, we're doing a brand new version, a compendium volume. So you can get all of those magazines in one book in 1993, for example, of Power Slam. Same again, 1994, 1995. So a full year's worth of mags in one book. And it's a really cool read. So the Superstars of Wrestling one has just come out now, and it's really cool. If nothing else, it's just so well written by that team, and I wouldn't be working for them if I didn't honestly believe that. It's just such a really good book, and go back and looking at how it works now. And Kenny, by the way, Kenny McIntosh, who is one of our head honchos at Inside the Ropes, he's the guy who interviews on stage at the events for people who aren't aware. He does an amazing podcast with Finn Martin as well, who was again one of the chiefs of the old Power Slam era of the magazine, and it's a great show. And they go through the old issue, and yeah, I can blab on for ages about that. So that's cool. There's some more publications coming out. We've also got in in February, we've got RVD and Kevin Nash coming over for a multiple city tour where Kenny is going to be chatting to them on stage, and fans will hopefully get to witness some really cool and interesting stories from those guys, as I'm sure they've got plenty to tell yet again. We all know that, well, both RVD and Kevin Nash aren't exactly shy with telling a story or two on their platforms.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see that live, close and personal. So that'll be cool. I know, speaking of cool, funnily enough, no pun intended, Carlito's also coming over.
That's right.
Yeah, he's coming for a multiple city tour. And a name as well that's not on that graphic is we've got D'Lo Brown coming over for a one-night show in Glasgow in Scotland as well. So there's a few different live events happening. Team will also be at For the Love of Wrestling, the big convention that happens in the UK every year. They'll be there, and we'll be unveiling hopefully unveiling the demo for our new video game that we're bringing out next year, which is Micro Titans Wrestling, which is a podcast in itself.
I'm loving this. I'm loving where this is going. Goff over on Twitch says he loves the Inside the Ropes conversations, and then you brought up Nash. He says that he just wants to hear an Oz story from Nash. So,
right.
I mean, I'm sure YouTube's a thing. I'm sure he's talked about it plenty of times in the past. But
it's interesting to know if he's at the point where a lot of wrestlers, you assume they get a gimmick, they don't like the gimmick, they never want to talk about the gimmick, but then they realize there's money in talking about the gimmick, so then they revert to frustratingly talking about the gimmick.
Yeah.
I think that happens quite a lot in wrestling. You guys, I don't want to talk about that shit time of my life, and then actually there's money in it, so yeah, let's talk about it.
You've got
let's chat.
You've got a busy start of the 2026, man. There's a lot of things happening and a lot of moving parts. I'm really interested to see where things go in the evolution, obviously, with what comes next. Now that our paths have crossed, and we've had a chance to sit down and talk, I definitely want to get you back down the line for sure here. Just to follow up and see what's happening and what's been going on. What's one of your which project are you? Well, I mean, this I don't want to sound like that guy, but is there one of these projects that you're more excited about than the other, or are they all just kind of like great moments for you to start the beginning of 2026 off with?
There's a very being involved with all of them is obviously really good fun. If nothing, as a fan, you can't ask for anything more, can you? But the one project that I'm really looking forward to launching is the one that I've essentially managed from scratch solo. And that is, I've got another bigger project coming up at the end of the year that I'm about to start, but the one I'm currently ongoing with, which is again, taps into the opening up doorways and avenues. Mm-hmm. Because I really do appreciate how many people I've worked with over the years, and anytime I can give somebody share the wealth, so to speak, I'll do my very best to. If there's an opportunity to get people involved with things, I will, because that just grows, the community grows, and everybody prospers from it, and then they do the same for you in return, and it's just the way I think I'd like to live my life in general, not just with wrestling, But the project in question is that we're going to launch. If you remember the WWF magazines, especially from 1992, they had an insert of a merchandise catalogue.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do our own merchandise catalogue with our magazine. It's going to be in digital format. But the way that we're doing it, instead of us just releasing all of our own product, like WWF just released all of their own product in there, you saw LOD wearing the foam shoulder pads, and Hulk Hogan with a bandana that you could buy, and Undertaker with his foam urn that you could...
Yeah.
of shit that WWF brought out that I love to death, by the way. I love all of that crap. I live for that merchandise. we're doing something similar, but every page is a different independent company who are doing licensed wrestling related merchandise. So we're going to have, I think there's currently about 7 different action figure companies who make legitimate licensed wrestling figures. There's quite a lot on the scene these days. People might not realize that. In fact, one of the ones I used to work for, being and did the design work for, was KWK. So this is an action figure that I designed and made the prototype for, being
Max Moon,
WWF. So these are
Conan, baby.
The old Hasbro wrestling figures from the early 90s. Well, this is where when the line finished in 1995, there was a lot of emissions and people didn't get a chance to get a figure made of them. We and numerous other companies have since reached out to those legends of yesteryear and said, would you like an action figure made? And collectors can then put it on the shelf alongside their Hulk Hogan, LOD, Bushwhacker figures, whatever it might be. So there's the likes of that. Max Moon, that was one of the figures that we made. And what we've got here, don't just stick to the early 90s, late 90s, like Taka Michinoku.
Hey.
And then even some legendary, the king of the jobs, Mr. Barry Darsow. Barry Horowitz, even, not Barry Darsow. You're speaking too much about Barry Darsow. Mr. Barry Horowitz. And he's an absolute gentleman and a pleasure to work with, by the way. He's a lovely, lovely guy. I'll try and hook you guys up for a chat at some point. But that's one company. There's 7 different companies doing very similar ilk, and they've all got incredible lines of figures. So getting back to the point, this catalogue is essentially going to feature all of these different companies, different video game companies that are bringing independent games out, authors who are bringing books out with wrestlers, this trading card companies who are bringing. If you can think of the type of merchandise that might feature wrestling, then we're interested, in featuring that in the catalogue. Completely free for any of these companies to be involved with, to be showcased. Every page you'll just have pictures, much like the WWF catalogue did, pictures of their products and links direct to their online store. And it's not a money-making thing, it's just a passion project.
I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation that we had a chance to have with Fox. I do want to pipe in right here and apologize because we had some technical difficulties on our live stream, and we actually lost the end of the show where we were basically just winding things down and saying our goodbyes. I do want you guys to please go over to Instagram and follow Grapple Arcade. Please check out what this guy's got going on. Fox is tremendous. I could not be more happy with the conversation that we had. I do apologize for the technical issues and the technical difficulties on the episode, and I look forward to having you back, sir. I just want to tell you guys we couldn't do this without each and every one of you. If you have not done so, please go down below, hit the likes, hit the follows, hit the subscribes, do the things so that we can continue moving forward into 2026 and bringing you some of the best content that we can put together and get out here for you guys to consume and enjoy. Until next time, I am Chris Page, and we'll see you soon.